For the last Sunday in August, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, major and different honors for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Atlanta opens the world's largest hood ornament. And at City Council, Caesar Mitchell sticks his nose up and raises his candidacy. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us. Our thoughts go out right now to the people of the Gulf Coast of Texas, whereas from Houston to Brownsville. It looks as if they're in the middle of several bad days. Yep. Don't know the extent of it as we tape this broadcast. Also, we know that will affect our gas prices in the weeks ahead. We'll see, because that is apparently the world's largest oil refinery area. So we'll see if that familiar effect happens. As for us in Georgia, Monday is a big day. If you think about it, for all of the accolades that we extend to the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's sort of odd that now in 2017, Jeff, comes a statue to Dr. King on the state capitol grounds. So we'll have 2 Nobel Prize winners erected there on the state capitol grounds. Wow. Isn't it amazing?
It's an historic day tomorrow morning, when I would imagine hundreds, if not thousands, of Georgians will come out to the unveiling by Governor Deal and his wife and Lieutenant Governor and other dignitaries in the state. This is the first time that we will have a non-legislator on the Capitol grounds. It's the first major acknowledgement on the Capitol grounds, which have been home to so many Confederate heroes and segregationists and others, of a civil rights icon like Martin Luther King Jr. And it's just a great day in Georgia. And it comes in amidst of swirling controversy around monuments. So the timing is fantastic,
and
particularly for Governor Deal.
Because the statue's been a year or so on the planning.
That's exactly right. That's right.
We
didn't time it around Charlottesville. This has been a long time in the making.
So I want to make the point that, again, if you Phil, you take some perspective, you think, why hasn't there been a statue to Dr. King? Then you step back and say, wait a minute, we know what we've been through. Now let's look at this current governor, Nathan Deal. Colorless, frankly, when he ran for governor 8 years ago, but now he's approaching statesman-like status, the way he's pulled all this off and a lot of other things. For example, just this week he named Michael Thurmond, or Will, to the Stone Mountain Memorial Board. Nathan Deal seems to know how to navigate these waters.
Well, I think he had to work with all sorts of different people when he was in Congress, Democrats and Republicans, and I think that kept him in good stead, because I think he's tried to do some moves that are very unifying. I think he's received praise from both sides of the political aisle, for example, on the criminal justice reform that's been very underreported, in my opinion. And, you know, he just premiered with the U.S. Attorney just this past week a movie about inmates when they get out and how they're treated, and it's called Released, I believe. And so I agree with you, and of course I think that we've talked about this on the gang. We have a shared history in this state, black and white. And yes, Jeff, you talk about the monuments to the Confederates. That should be a shared history with Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King obviously was a milestone in terms of how this country is evolving in terms of black and white race relations. And if you want to try to be optimistic, this week is a day to be optimistic.
And Alexis, I'll let you get in here, because I know that Phil just said that pretty well. Jeff and our sometime colleague Theron Johnson have argued for, in fact it was on your website, for contextualization. It's one of those words I wish we hadn't invented, but you know, it's kind of true. If you have Confederate generals and former governors at the state capitol, and you add Dr. Martin Luther King, you're putting everything in context. The same thing, I think, is what Michael Thurmond will urge for Stone Mountain in some way, because after all, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. brought Stone Mountain into the national conversation.
Absolutely.
In a positive way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm in favor of contextualization too, if I can get that word out of my mouth.
Get the word out, yeah.
But I think we do have a shared history, and we do want to tell it completely. The issue that I have with the Stone Mountain Memorial is that the legislation has been stated in such a way that it cannot be altered or cannot be changed. So that does kind of tie the hands of the people who are on that memorial board or commission. But I think if they would like to change the legislation, that's going to be a hard thing to do.
One thing, let me just say this, one thing about that is, and we all have been to Stone Mountain, it's a memorial. You have all of the old Confederate states, and they have the dead listed on these tablets. And so in the law, and I think this part should be respected, it's a monument to those Georgians who fell in battle for a cause. And so I think that ought to be respected.
A cause of treason to destroy
you
the
can
unit,
talk
to
about,
succeed.
you can have your opinions on that.
That's a fact.
But
It's not
these
an
men,
opinion.
well, the fact is these men still died, and people want to honor their ancestors.
And how many people of color died?
And they weren't all slaveholders. And they
Well,
didn't.
that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, but the fact is, you take your typical yeoman farmer from North Georgia who fought and died for the South, he wasn't near any slaves because nobody was growing any
Surely
cotton.
you would
And it's
allow people
pathetic
to
that he
honor
was
their
duped into
ancestors.
fighting for a
Surely you would
terrible-
allow
for
people to
treason.
honor their ancestors,
You know,
regardless of what.
Absolutely.
Last week I mentioned the Slate magazine column from descendants of Stonewall Jackson.
Yes.
This week, of course, we had the descendants of Alexander Stephens, former vice president of the Confederacy, come out and say, remove the statue from the U.S. Capitol. And we've got to figure out a way that we can do both. Casey Cagle, for instance, has said, let's not take away from, let's add to.
Right.
And let's add to. And I think that Stone Mountain Park, especially with Michael Thurman being on the Memorial Association, is in the perfect position to show America how we can tell the story from the Civil War to civil rights. And we can combine this history together. We can teach school children in a way that's positive and that's instructive and that doesn't leave anything out. And they're halfway there. And I think Michael Thurman can get them the rest of the way. It was an act of political genius on the part of the governor.
And the point about Michael Thurman is not only is he a seasoned political leader, but he's actually an historian of the South.
Yes.
And he brings a lot of brain power to that issue.
That's exactly right. And he's the CEO in the county where the park is located.
And also, can I just say one more thing about it, though, just to put it more into context, that the legislation was changed in 2001, the beginning of the 21st century, to prevent any changes to the monument and to add any addition to it.
Well, it was part of a compromise.
Yes, exactly. I'm going there.
Okay.
It was a compromise so they could change the flag, so they could get the Confederate battle flag emblem off of the state flag of Georgia. So, I mean, it's just terrible. They just will not let go of how they want to.
Every time a statue comes down in Durham, Nashville, Lexington, Birmingham, Baltimore, people's backs stiffen to protect the carvings of Stone Mountain, because they see it as an all-out assault.
Well, that's right.
Now,
You've got to all condemn radicalism. That's why I appreciate Ambassador Andrew Young, and I appreciate Michael Thurman, because these are bridge builders, and we're talking about a shared history. But when you see radicals trying to topple statues like in Piedmont Park and there are no arrests, that makes people mad.
I'm not suggesting that at all.
But I'm telling you the context.
And by the way, Kasim Reed has called together a group of citizens. We should note that. I think we mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But he's pulled together a group to look at such things as renaming Confederate Avenue.
Right.
That's Roy Barnes's bold step.
Which, again, they may or may not be able to do because of that state law.
All right, we got to get out. When we come back, we will we're going to talk about that hood ornament. That thing is serious. I mean, Arthur Blank, wow. And we've got a couple of people here who have actually seen it up close and personal. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Saturday was a big day. The first football game played in the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium in downtown Atlanta, brought to you by Arthur Blank, Esquire. You two have had the opportunity to tour it. Alexis and I have not. I look at it just in wonder And I like some of these names like the world's largest hood ornament and all that. Or I think the Mercedes-Benz logo is the largest of its kind anywhere. Is that?
You can see it from space.
You can, really?
It looks like it for sure.
Phil, your thoughts?
Well, I think we all agree it's going to be a huge asset, and you know, Arthur Blank is the man of the hour as we look at it and tour it, and hopefully everybody will be going to games soon. You know, I'll do a little political aspect to this that's not very well reported too. Is former Representative Mark Burkhalter of Alpharetta, back in 2010, did the enabling legislation, and he had to cobble together a group of legislators. You know, it's not that popular to get public funding for this massive stadium that's with the team, but he did it, and he got Governor Perdue on board, and I think we ought to tip a hat to those folks that made this possible.
That was a tough political call.
It was.
No question about it. Now, Jeffrey, you've toured. I was joking during the commercial break about the 100-yard long bar with white lines and the whole thing. The place just sounds fabulous.
Well, there are a number of really neat meeting places and clubs in the facility, and there's one on each level. And one of the great things about this particular arena as opposed to others is that it isn't really segregated by your ticket, the price of your ticket, right? So
there's no cheap seats.
There are no cheap seats, but those levels where there are suites, everybody can go on those levels. Now, you might not be able to go into those swanky clubs on those levels, but it isn't restricted like a lot of other stadiums.
You can walk all around.
You can walk all the way around. You can go to any level in the facility.
And Jeff, weren't you impressed with that giant, and you all have to see this, everybody has to see this, the video halo board that goes all around, which is very impressive.
Now, I think the question that all this arises, it is truly, I've been in Jerry's world in Texas. I think this exceeds that. I mean, I just think the whole idea of places for people to congregate, they're speculating that a lot of people won't even use their seats. They will use the mini bars. And
they'll use the bars. There's no question about it. They're just great places to lounge and to
because
meet
apparently
people.
Millennials are more social than we are, and they want to do that. But I guess the question to me is one that Atlanta's faced for all 45 years I've been here. Can something like this actually revitalize downtown Atlanta? I don't know. Now, I want you to notice there are three groups currently working on plans for downtown. There's a group from South Carolina looking at underground. There is the West Side Initiative that involves the stadium. Then there are the Hawks' new owners who are looking again at the Gulch and the Norfolk Southern thing.
And Phillips Arena.
And Phillips Arena. And how many of these have we been through? I hate to sound skeptical or cynical, but I know in my newspaper days, I sure wrote a lot about all those things, Jeff. Well, and I just don't think, can you, given the unusual topography, the relative isolation of the stadium from street downtown, you know, you've got Arthur and Bernie together in the sense you've got the stadium and the aquarium. But can there truly be active street life in downtown
And you left
Atlanta?
off one other development. The folks who sold the church for Friendship Baptist Church, they're planning a $30 million mixed development right in that same area.
Yeah, and the hotel, of course, in the Georgia World Congress.
Right.
And of course, you know, you've got Turner Field. So what you have are these nodes, these centers of activity around downtown. I don't think that one in and of itself would do it. But when you put all of them together, you're going to have a very vibrant downtown. Probably key to it all, though, is going to be the Gulch. The Gulch seriously needs redevelopment. Those owners are now looking at the old Norfolk Southern building. It was announced last week, and so if you can pull all that together, I think that would be terrific. I think
these are good points. One caveat: you got to make sure that you've got a good police presence down there. That'll make it work.
You've got to make the street, the petty crimes, the perception of crime. You've got to do it. Downtown will never work until all that is policed and cleaned up. The Beltline changed leadership this week. The world's largest non-transit transit system. I mean, it's a big sidewalk, but they fired the guy who ran it because he wouldn't put enough affordable housing in. I like affordable housing. I want some. Where do I sign up for this affordable housing?
Dunwoody.
No, well, that nobody's offering me it. I don't know. What's the deal? So they bring back Brian McGowan from Invest Atlanta. Now, wasn't he run off from there for bad expense reports?
Oh no, no, I don't think so. And I think that Brian is going to be in there probably on an interim basis, so he very well might want to do that job. He's now one of those high-paid consultants at Denton's.
Remind me, why did he leave Invest Atlanta?
I don't remember those circumstances, but I think that this is probably a change that needed to take place. You cannot have this kind of development in the city, particularly as the Beltline expands to the south side, without a strong affordable housing component. Now, 5,600 units were planned. It didn't happen. I think that a story by the News Lab and the AJC really kind of exposed some of the problems that the Beltline was having with its affordable housing component.
There's nothing in the Constitution about affordable housing.
No,
this
but
is
that was the
development.
vision for the Beltline.
No, the Beltline was transit, folks. That's what I'd laugh about.
No, it was transit.
It was supposed to be transit
and
oriented.
housing. It was both.
Now it's a big sidewalk.
But you can't have that kind of development as a big sidewalk. That's funny. It is probably one of the leading economic developers in the city of Atlanta that is responsible for billions of dollars in investment in the city. It's just amazing. And you should go see what you call a sidewalk.
It's
You'd
a
be
big
astonished. And in the meantime, you'd likely see the old Fourth Ward. Which used to be associated with, blight and crime.
It has turned around. It has turned around.
And now you've got places over there selling for $800,000. And so the people who used to live there and can't afford $800,000 need a place to go.
And Dick,
that's
for the record,
There's no transit component, though.
Just for the record on Brian McGowan, he left, you remember after Sam Williams left the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, he went over there to help right that ship.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember the details. I just did whatever. All right, when we come back, we're going to turn our attention to the mayor's race in Atlanta. Caesar Mitchell had been quiet, but he laid down some markers this week. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Qualifying ended this past week for municipal office all around the state, city races. And the big race, the mayor's race in Atlanta, no real surprises, except I was wrong. John Eves, the chairman of Fulton County, did in fact qualify. I'd had it in my head all along that he would not, because he hasn't gained traction so far that I can see in the race for mayor. And just to pause, John Eves was chairman of the Fulton County Commission for 10 years. That's hard to believe.
It is, and of course, that opens up a race in Fulton County between Gabe Sterling and Rob Pitts.
Right.
But in the mayor's race, it is strangely quiet. You got, again, we've said this many times, got very serious candidates. I, for example, had been wondering what Caesar Mitchell would bring to the table. He's the president of City Council, and this week he came out hard to stop Kasim Reed from rebidding contracts before they're up.
Or new contracts in 2018.
Or new contracts.
It's a moratorium.
And I think also he wants to avoid having the mayor sign contracts with personnel that would extend into the term of a new mayor. That was a surprise to me that he would be that assertive. Did you feel that way?
Well, let me just say that there is an ongoing, bribery scandal involving contracts with City Hall. And you had to fire, as we all know, the procurement officer a few months ago. So I think caution is the note of the day. I don't see anything wrong with it. I see where Mary Norwood, another candidate for mayor, and Kathy Willard are signing on. Maybe more people are, but I think it's a cautionary note that's needed.
I don't think that you stop the work of particularly a mayor like this mayor who's just been so incredibly successful. I mean, we were just talking about all of the things that are going on downtown. I don't think that would have happened were it not for the mayor's leadership. For instance, working with Arthur Blank on the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And so to say, put everything on hold, put everything on pause for the last 5 months of his administration isn't realistic. It's not going to happen. I think that there's a reason that they're moving forward. This primarily looks like it's about some retail proposals that are due next month at Hartsfield. But the current ones expire a year from then in September 18, and you really have to get moving on these projects so that you can get people in line and you can go through whatever process you're going to have to go through. But the
Jeff,
food and beverage,
realize,
with food and beverage, it went on for over a year, and did very well could this time. And so in order to make sure that we've got retail contracts in place, now it's time to start that process.
Jeff, you would have to agree that the procurement office is tainted, and I'm being kind, and you can put a hold on some of these contracts, not all, to your point, but some.
I don't know what it's been tainted by. I really don't. I hear that reference and I read those news stories.
When you got the procurement office that's marched out the door under a cloud.
Well, I don't think that's
the FBI is.
I think that means that there were people in City Hall, the mayor included, who saw a reason for doing that. But we don't know what that is. We don't know what that reason is.
It dealt with contracts.
The feds came in and got his stuff. That's not a good thing. We should note this week that Shanderick Barnes, who's accused of extortion and threatening in that city investigation that Phil mentioned, was indicted by the feds after he'd been arrested by local, allegedly confessed, lost the confession somehow. Now he's been indicted by the feds, so that investigation continues. One last topic. I think we can squeeze this in. Billy Payne leaving as chairman of Augusta National Golf Club and the Masters. Phil, what a career. An all-SEC lineman, brought the Olympics to Atlanta, revitalized the Masters, admitted women to Augusta National. What else?
Well, you took away all my thunder, but he revolutionized that course. And if you go there now, he's done a good balance between tradition and getting all of that parking and buying up all of the neighborhoods. That's another legacy. I think it's the only sporting event in the country where you can just drive up and have free parking. But it's quite a legacy, and Fred Ridley, I think, will be a worthy successor. He played the Masters 3 times in the tournament itself.
Amateur. Amazing.
That's right, and he knows he's been on the committees. He's a member of the National, and be a great successor.
Yeah, boy, when you write the book, Billy Payne's career is just amazing. 185-pound all-SEC defensive end. Wow. All right, when we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
You just missed a segment. We got into discussing the fact that we had failed to mention the raise given to DOT Commissioner Russell McMurray from like $185,000 to $350,000 a year. And Jeff, I'm going to go to you for winners and losers, but I understand you said McMurray would qualify for a pension of $210,000 a year for life.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Public service is pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Let's go sign up.
All right, go ahead.
Governor Deal. And I don't get an opportunity to make him winner of the week very often, but he certainly is this week. Tomorrow he's going to unveil the statue. I think that putting Michael Thurman, a Civil War historian, on an all-white Stone Mountain Memorial Association board is, again, a stroke of genius, so he's my winner of the week.
And it's in his county. We forgot
exactly
to mention
right.
that.
That's right.
All right, Alexis?
Okay, I'm going to salute the 2017 inductees into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame. Doug Blackman, who wrote Slavery by Another Name, was also a reporter at one time at AJC and Wall Street Journal. Fred Cahill, who does sports at one of the local TV stations. Cynthia Tucker, who used to be one of our colleagues at the AJC. And Aubrey Morris is being inducted posthumously. He was the first news director for WSB Radio in Atlanta.
He was a legend. And
Wanya Lucas, president of Public Broadcasting Atlanta, has been named to the J.C. Penney Board of Directors. So that's good for her and hopefully good for them. They'll learn how to compete in this retail world. And also Bronze Lens Film Festival is going on, ends this weekend. And finally, Hosea Helps, formerly Hosea Feed the Hungry, has a new location, and they dedicated it on Friday. So congratulations to them, and they keep up the good work.
Phil?
Well, I'm going to agree with Jeff on Governor Deal, and he's had quite a week. You started with that before the show. But what I think the loser ought to be, yes, Russell McMurray, the commissioner of DOT. The board gave him that tremendous raise. I like him. He probably should have been given a bonus. We had good work done on that bridge that caught fire. And, you know, Forsyth County, I think you and I had talked about that. Right. They voted down the 25% pay raise and full-time salaries. As you've always pointed out, Dick, on this show, these are part-timers.
Part-time jobs, and they voted down 25% pay raise, good for the Forsyth County Commission. Not so good for Michael Thurman in another way. The county had its biggest sewage spill in 10 years, and it comes just after Michael Thurman had been out to Brookhaven to show how they were cleaning all the pipes. That was like just a few weeks ago. Big display of equipment and nice stuff, and now the county at just a quarter of a mile down the creek has its biggest sewage spill in 12 years. The winner is all of us because college football kicks off this coming weekend. The Dome, no, not the Dome, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be the center of the college football world in a week ahead. We'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.